Hello, my name is Levi Manley, and this is a brief video essay of the life of Philip II of Spain, one of the more notable figures of the Renaissance Europe. Philip II was born into one of the most powerful families the world has ever seen, the Habsburg family, and was the son of arguably the most powerful man of the 16th century, King of Spain, Mexico, the Netherlands, large swaths of Italy, and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Philip II was born on May 27, 1527 in Alhambra, Spain. In 1554, at the behest of his father, Philip II married Mary Tudor, Queen of England, to solidify the alliance between the Habsburgs and the Tudor dynasty of England in an attempt to surround France, who the Habsburg family was currently at war with over control of Italy in the final Valois-Habsburg War, which had been raging in Europe since 1494. In 1556, Philip II ascended to the throne of Spain in the Spanish Netherlands when his father, King Charles V, abdicated his position as King of Spain and Holy Roman Emperor and divided his empire between his two sons. Philip II became King of Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, and inherited control of Spain's overseas holdings, while Philip's half-brother Don John of Austria inherited Charles's German holdings and the title of Holy Roman Emperor. Philip inherited the Spanish crown at a crucial point in his history as the Ottoman Empire was ascendant in the Mediterranean and the Protestant Reformation was at its height. Also, at the time, the war between France and Spain was at a stalemate. In 1558, Charles V would die, and Philip would be desperately needed back in Spain. In November of that year, Philip's wife, Mary Tudor of England, would also die, ending the best chance of unifying the crowns of England and Spain under the Habsburg yoke. In 1559, the Treaty of Cateau-Cambrai was signed, ending the final Valois-Habsburg War in a draw. Later in his reign, Philip would offer Queen Elizabeth I, the successor of Mary Tudor, his hand in marriage, but she would refuse him, starting a decades-long rivalry between the two monarchs. Philip II's reign was defined by religious zeal and an almost constant conflict with the other major powers of Europe. As a devoted Catholic, religion pervaded all aspects of his life's work, and influenced all of his governmental and political decisions, as he regularly consulted priests. Philip's religious beliefs also brought him to the conclusion that fueled many of his more controversial decisions, and this was his belief that his right to rule was divine, and that this divine right gave him the supreme authority to take whatever actions he deemed necessary to achieve his goals. It was these beliefs that brought Philip into conflict with his subjects in Flanders, as Philip's hardline religious beliefs were the motivation for his decision to force the Spanish Inquisition on the inhabitants of Flanders in an attempt to root out and kill the Protestants in the region. For Philip had a deep-seated hatred of the Protestant faith and its doctrine, as he considered it a threat to the faith. These actions trampled upon the autonomous rights of the lower aristocracy, which had previously been recognized by Charles V. These actions eventually forced the Dutch into open revolt against Philip's rule. Philip's hatred for Protestants also, at the same time, drug him into intervention in the French Civil War on the side of the Catholics, which started in 1562, and also drug him into a war with England, Protestant England. At one point, Philip's forces threatened to bring all of Western Europe under the Habsburg umbrella. Philip also had to contend with the Ottoman threat in the Mediterranean during his reign, contributing many ships and large sums of money to the Holy League, which eventually checked the Ottoman expansion at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. Philip reached the height of his power in 1581 when he ascended to the throne of Portugal after the death of King Sebastian of Portugal at the Battle of Alcover in 1578. The growing might of Spanish power was checked, however, in 1588 after a failed invasion attempt of England. This defeat was followed up by successes of the Dutch rebels in Holland and French Huguenot successes under Henry Bourbon against the Catholic League in France. These events combined to ensure that Philip's wars against the Protestants in Western Europe would last long after his death. Philip II of Spain died at the age of 71 on the morning of September 13, 1598. Philip had led Spain through its golden age and saw the beginning of its decline as a world power. To some, he was a virtuous champion of the faith, yet to others, he was a vicious monster who was an agent of the devil. In his lifetime, he interacted with many of the notable personalities of his age, such as Charles V, Mary Tudor, Queen Elizabeth I, William Silent of Orange, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, Catherine de' Medici, and Henry Bourbon. In addition, Philip lived through and responded to many of the formative events of the 16th century, including the Valois-Habsburg Wars, the Dutch revolts, the Spanish Armada, and the Battle of Lepanto, and the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. Sources for this essay were The Imprudent King, A New Life of Philip II by Godfrey Parker, Spain of the Habsburgs by John Lynch, Philip II of Spain by Sir Charles Petrie, The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre and the European Conflict by N.M. Sutherland, and The Habsburgs in Europe by H.G. Königsberg. Thank you for your time.